What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing Ravens content every single day. If you want to stay at daily Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell as well if you want to get notified every single time we upload a brand new video. Now, in this video today, it is going to be the fourth Baltimore Ravens 7-round mock draft. A quick recap if you guys don't know how this works. I use the Draft Network's mock draft tool for anybody that's interested in what I'm using. I don't do any trades because it's just so far in advance. It's not worth doing trades right now. So it's no trades. Baltimore Ravens, 7 rounds. I made all the picks. And I will preface this video by saying Joshua and I tonight are recording a video talking about combine standouts and if the Ravens should draft him and whatnot. So if you're bringing up people and you're like, oh, for example, we will be talking about Jordan Davis. If you're saying, hey, we should draft him, don't worry. We will be talking extensively in an individual video about the combine combine monsters that we got to see over the weekend. So don't worry, that'll be out. Probably we'll get one out tonight, maybe. I'm hoping so. And then a couple will be out tomorrow and over the next couple days. So it should be a lot of fun. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But if you're interested in seeing any of the other mock drafts, there's a playlist on the YouTube channel. And I want to see what your mock drafts are. Let me know who you are picking, who your favorite guys are, so that we can, look at those guys and scout them and potentially draft them in our own future mocks. With that in mind, let's get into it. With the first pick for the Baltimore Ravens, I went with David Ojabo. We all know him, edge rusher out of the University of Michigan. When I was sitting here at this spot, a couple of the guys that I really liked were gone, and it was really between a couple of people. Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher out of Florida State, David Ojabo, Trevor Penning, Tyler Linderbaum. All of them would have been completely fine selections, in my opinion. I'm not against any of those guys. But I felt like David Ojabo, the benefit of Ojabo is the coaching staff knows him. And I'm not talking about John Harbaugh, because John Harbaugh and Michigan players, whatever, doesn't matter to me. But Mike Macdonald, I think, is someone to look at because he oversaw the massive jump that Ojabo had going into, this most recent season. Ojabo is an inexperienced edge rusher, okay? He only had 20 games in which he played in college. That is very minimal for someone of his caliber, and I think that putting him next to Odafe Oweh, while they may be inexperienced right now, they are both tremendously hard workers, and they're both going to be able to improve dramatically, and Mike Macdonald has shown that he can improve players that have limited experience. Example, David Ojabo. So I think that he could be a really good piece, and I really like addressing the edge rusher spot early to make sure that we have a prominent pass rush, this upcoming season, because there are question marks. Calais Campbell, Justin Houston, Brandon Williams. We don't know what that front seven is going to look like. With the next pick, I ended up going with Daniel Falele, offensive tackle out of Minnesota. There were a couple offensive tackles available. I do want to address offensive tackle in the draft. And since I didn't go Penning in the first round, I was like, I got to get a tackle. And I like Daniel Falele. He is a guy that obviously we know he's massive. With the comparisons to Orlando Brown Jr., yes, they're there. But what I like is just the Ravens' ability to develop tackles is actually pretty good. It's very underrated in their team. Now, obviously, last year they did not have very good offensive tackle play. Why? Because they didn't have any more remaining. They brought in Alejandro Villanueva to be the right tackle, and then Ronnie Stanley got hurt, and they were like, oh, no, we didn't really plan for that. We don't really have anybody. And they were like, okay, all right, we can throw in a former guard. And then he got hurt and was like, oh, no, even worse. And then Patrick McCary came in, and he actually played really well. So shout out to Patrick McCary. But I feel like the Ravens drafting tackle should be done definitely relatively early in the draft. Within the first 3 rounds, they should go after a tackle. I like Falele. I felt like it was a solid selection. And if you guys ever disagree with my picks, let me know. I'm completely okay with that. We're all Ravens fans. We can all have our opinions. I mean, if you say, hey, this is a bad pick because of XYZ, I may agree with you. And I'd be maybe like, okay, that was a poor selection on my part. So please let me know what you guys think. Pick 76, I went with Phidarian Mathis, a defensive tackle out of the University of Alabama. Now, the Baltimore Ravens, I feel like they got to get back to their roots. The Ozzie Newsome philosophy. Alabama, Alabama, Alabama. That is something that we've gone away from, and I feel like we can get right back to it because Alabama's always producing top-level talent. And I think that Mathis could just be someone that the Ravens could get to try and replace, the Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams gap that we are going to see next season, potentially. We don't know about Calais Campbell. We don't know about Brandon Williams, but we have Madubuike. Who's going to be in that group with him? I feel like Mathis could be a guy that, could start off, sub in a little bit, but eventually, just like Madubuike did, by the end of the year, coming in a little bit more, and then second season, really stepping it up, because I feel like he could still contribute this year, but he could be even better in the years to come. Next pick 99 in the draft. I went with Jesse Luketa, linebacker out of Penn State. Now, Luketa is, just a really, really solid linebacker. He's not an athletic freak of nature, that we see out of a lot of Penn State linebackers. However, he has been a part of that linebacking core, for a couple of seasons. And that linebacking core includes a lot of prominent names. Micah Parsons, Shaka Toney, Adafe Owe, and plenty of other guys. And he is just someone that I feel like could just be a, nose in the ground, hard worker that can just help be a leader on this defense, because the Ravens are losing leadership. Even if Calais Campbell returns this year, we won't have him next year. So, they're still lacking leadership on the defense, and nothing against any of the players the Ravens have. Nothing against Marlon. I think he could be a really good leader, but just getting good guys in that locker room, and to be mentored by someone like Mike McDonald, but also a Zachary Orr, could be a phenomenal combination to bring into the Baltimore Ravens front seven. So that's why I went with Luketa, and he also knows Adafe Owe. That could be something that's beneficial, just getting that instant chemistry for him to be able to play next to Adafe. Next pick 108, I went with the cornerback out of Cincinnati, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant is a very solid cornerback. Now, he's not the cornerback Sauce Gardner is, but he's still a very decent cornerback prospect, because he actually won the cornerback of the year this past season in college football. He had 10 interception in 5 years playing college football. He can get after it. He ran a 4.5 40-yard dash, which at 6'1" isn't bad at all. It's a very respectable number, and he plays press man coverage. That's what the Ravens like to do. And I feel like the Ravens, we don't know what's going on with Marcus Peters. And Marcus Peters may return to the Ravens, after this year, and that could be totally fine. But I feel like drafting someone that we could develop underneath and potentially play, in critical spots late in the year, that could be very beneficial, because the Ravens cornerback depth is needed. Guys get hurt all the time. We need cornerback depth. All right. And I'm okay with the cornerbacks we have now, but we don't know about Anthony Averett. Is he returning? We don't know about a lot of guys. So I feel like drafting corner is a big need in this draft. I just don't know if it has to be a first 3-round type of thing. So, I drafted Kobe Bryant, and don't worry, I actually will also be drafting another cornerback later as a sneak preview. But pick 117, had to go with a guy out of Maryland. Unfortunately, it's not Nick Cross. He was already gone off of the board. Nick Cross, shout out to him. Phenomenal combine. But I went with, I'm going to butcher it. I'm sorry, Maryland fans. Chigoziem Okonkwo. He's a tight end. He ran the fastest 40-yard dash. And I'm not drafting him because he ran the fastest 40-yard 40-yard dash. I'm not drafting him because of that. I'm drafting him because I really like what he could bring to the table for the Baltimore Ravens. And yes, he could play tight end. He could be our tight end 3 behind Mark Andrews and Nick Boyle. But the big thing that I'm thinking of is he could play in the wide receiver position and just line up on the outside and be the guy that we wanted, I'm blanking on his name, Miles Boykin to be, and be that 6'2", good-sized possession receiver. And he could do that at his size, and he could also play on the line, and he could just be shifted around and be used as a all-around type of player. And I do like that potential. And so when I'm looking at tight ends to draft, because I think the Ravens do need 3 tight ends on their roster, I like guys that can provide versatility. And I feel like Okonkwo can absolutely do that for the Ravens, whether he's playing on the line or playing closer to a wide receiver role, because when we think about it, Greg Roman likes to put Miles Boykin on the line when it's, 3rd and 1, 4th and goal. Well, now, or puts him out on the field to block. He's not lining up, on the line of scrimmage. Sorry for the misspoke there. But when he does that, We could switch that out with a tight end that has the ability to really catch the ball. And also, he's a tight end. He has much more experience blocking than a guy like Miles Boykin. So I do like him, at pick 117. But next pick, 126, I went with Josh Joby, another Alabama player, another cornerback, because I like him as a prospect, and I felt like he was falling in the draft a little bit. He's got really good size. He's sitting at about 6'1", and he plays press man coverage. All right? That is big. When we look at the Baltimore Ravens, what do they like to do? They like to play press man. And so when we have situations where guys get hurt, like we did last year, Marlon Humphrey goes down, all of a sudden it was like, we're throwing guys in that have little experience. They're struggling with the press man because that's not something they're great at. Josh Joby, Kobe Bryant, both guys that can play really solid press man coverage and can both be really developmental underneath two of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. And then when they're called upon, they will be able to perform. I do believe that they're both veterans that are going to be able to perform this year when they get an opportunity. So I do think that they could both be very viable draft selections. Pick number 138. I went with one final secondary piece. This one's a safety. I went with Sterling Weatherford. The Ravens safety is up in question. That the spots are available. We don't know what's happening with Deshaun Elliott. Chuck Clark, he could be here for the foreseeable future. That's my understanding. But then, we have Brandon Stevens, a little bit inexperienced, but he played really solid. We have Geno Stone. We have our Darius Washington. But who else do we have? Well, Sterling Weatherford could be the guy to replace Anthony Levine. He is a big body guy at 6'4". He ran a really solid 40-yard dash, actually. I was kind of surprised when I saw the number because he ended up running it like a 4.5 or something like that, which is phenomenal for that type of size. And he's a big hitter. Big hitters that can play special teams and make big plays. That's something that I really like when I'm looking at, late round players. Can they play on special teams? Can they make big plays? I do think that Sterling Weatherford can absolutely do that. So that's why I like him, as a guy to add in as the final secondary addition in this draft. But moving into the next pick, this one's less to play wide receiver, but I went with Bo Melton out of Rutgers because I believe the Baltimore Ravens should draft a special teams player because I believe Devin Duvernay should get more involved in the offense. And when he's returning kicks, returning punts, you get tired after doing that, right? Like you can't play a full drive when you're also returning all these kicks and things like that. So let's get Devin Duvernay out on the field. And this isn't trying to say Devin Duvernay is not good enough at returning. I'm saying he's good enough to be a wide receiver rather than a return specialist. Think about, all of the great players in the NFL that were once return guys, right? Antonio Brown returned punts early in his career. Dez Bryant did it. Odell Beckham Jr. did it. Tyreek Hill did it. Then all of a sudden it was like, okay, these guys are good enough for wide receiver. Let's put him wide receiver. We'll get someone to replace him. The Chiefs went with Mecole Hardman. And now Mecole Hardman is no longer the returner. I think they have sprinkle returning kicks now. But that's what I think that the Ravens should do with Devin Duvernay. Get him out on the field more. Take him off special teams, even though he's very good. And let's get someone that can do it in Bo Melton. Now, Bo Melton, he ran a great 40-yard dash. I think it was a 4.34, but he's seen as he could be a gadget player and replace Devin Duvernay as the gadget player and allow Devin Duvernay to be a true wide receiver because I do think he's a really solid wide receiver. I'm not drafting Bo Melton to take the spot of Tylan Wallace or James Prochet. I'm taking it to get Devin Duvernay on the field and have a really solid returner with explosive capabilities. That's why I'm selecting him. I'm not selecting him because Devin Duvernay needs an upgrade at return or anything like that. I need to specify that. But let's get into the final pick 194. And I usually hate doing this, but I went with another Michigan man. I know. I'm always so critical of drafting Michigan players. However, just like with the Jesse Luketa pick, I really want to get a linebacker that has that character that could potentially be a great leader for the front seven because the front seven is so young. The oldest guy in the front seven that we know will be here is like Tyus Bowser. which is very surprising because Tyus Bowser has not been here that long. And I like Tyus Bowser. I think he's a really great player. He's yet to show like any like amazing leadership, and that's nothing against him. You know, he's a great player. He's a like watch me type of leader, but he's not, you know, I haven't seen very much of him, you know, hyping up the team and stuff like that. That was Calais Campbell, right? That was Pernell McPhee. Those were the guys that were getting everybody excited. So we need someone that can do it. And so I'm drafting potential players. And coming from Michigan, Mike McDonald knows him. That's big. And Zachary Orr, I think, is huge when we're looking at drafting middle linebackers, because Joshua Ross could absolutely be someone that is just like a Zachary Orr. Just like him. He's not overly fast or anything like that, but he's a two-time captain. He's a defensive leader, and he's played under Mike McDonald. And if Mike McDonald takes him, it's because he knows how important he is. Think about Urban Meyer. He brought in Tim Tebow to the Jaguars. Why? Not because he's a good tight end. That was not the reason. He brought him in hoping that he would be a great leader. It didn't work out. It didn't work out. But they tried. They tried to be like, hey, if he's a good enough leader, he can stay. And Joshua Ross is a guy that's going to work his tail off to try and make the team and to try and be the best player that he can be so that other players can be even better. I do like that selection, and I am going to put all of these draft picks in the comment section. If you guys want to, you know, get an overview again of who I drafted and things like that, please let me know what you guys think. Tonight, we will be recording our, you know, combine reactions to a bunch of different players. So shout out to all of the great combine results. Let us know who you guys like. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I will see all of you again tomorrow.